I'm Amanda Houck, and today we're speaking with Nancy Innermill, who is running for County Commissioner for Lancaster County in District 4. So welcome, Nancy.
Thanks, Amanda.
Why don't we start with just a little bit of your background?
Sure. My background is primarily in education. I was a professor of gerontology at Washburn University a number of years ago, and I've taught sociology at Kansas State University, Union College here in Lincoln, and also Wesleyan University. And in addition, I served as a strategic planner for Health and Human Services for about 10 years, and worked primarily with mental health programs and children's programs. For about the past 8 years, I've owned my own business called Accountable Solutions, and I do grant writing primarily for nonprofit organizations.
Okay, well that sounds great. So I guess we should just start off here with the questions.
Okay.
Do you believe that the city of Lincoln and Lancaster County should be able to consolidate their services?
You know, there's been a lot of talk of consolidation over the years, and I think what we need to be concerned about first and foremost is that we have several municipalities in Lancaster County who need to be taken into consideration when we do this discussion. So I'd really like to see a very wide discussion, including a lot of citizens, to get a lot of input on this question. We do know that there have been some examples across the country where this has been done effectively. Indianapolis, for instance, in Marion County in Indiana has consolidated, and they've done that since 1970, and they found it to be very effective. In addition, Wyandotte County and Kansas City, Kansas joined, and they too have had a lot of success with that venture. The fact that we have 90% of our county residents living in the city really means that we need to take a look at that. And if it appears to be beneficial for all citizens, then I think we should carry that discussion forward.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
In relation to Lancaster County, how do we control the rising property taxes that is currently impacting citizens?
That's a good question, Amanda. That's primarily what I hear when I've been going door to door, which I've been doing almost daily since April, and what people are most concerned about is the rising property taxes. Taxes have actually almost doubled in the last 10 years that my opponent has been in office, and people are feeling squeezed out. They're concerned that, and in many cases are talking about the fact that they need to move out of the county and maybe out of the state to go someplace where property taxes are not so onerous. I took a walk the other day and ran into, in 1 hour period, one young retiree who said she and her husband who moved up from Beatrice, but they're now considering moving out of the state. And then I went to another family where a young woman answered the door and said that her parents are moving out of the state and she and her family are moving along with them. So it's a big problem. I think we need to look at it very closely. And there's two ways that we can actually reduce property taxes. One is to reduce the services that we provide. The other is to expand our tax base. And I think when we look at the services that we provide, we need to be doing that very efficiently. We need to look at how our taxes being spent. Are we getting value for the taxes that we pay? If we're not, then we need to be changing that formula, and I think that that might be true in some cases where spending is going on. The other place that we need to look is expanding our tax base, and what we have discovered is that through the use of something called the Greenbelt exemption, that properties that are outside of the city limits, in some cases people are getting exemptions for having a Greenbelt, which means that they have agricultural property, which may not be fairly applied to them. This particular county board seems to be extremely liberal in their application of the Greenbelt exemption, and what that means is that the tax burden is being shifted to people in the city. I think that the argument about Greenbelt is that it must be applied fairly and it must be applied consistently so that people know predictably if in fact they're going to be able to look for a Greenbelt exemption or not. If in fact people are getting a Greenbelt exemption because they have an acreage and they have a few animals, that doesn't really fly in the face of fairness. So I think we need to be concerned about that. We need to look at that. Can we expand our tax base by doing something like looking at the Greenbelt exemptions? Can we apply that fairly? It's not only just a matter of family farms, but, and by all means, if it is a family farm, we should be using the Greenbelt because that protects people, for instance, from having to sell their property so that they can pay their property taxes. We certainly don't want that to happen. But also, we need to look at some of the properties that are in town. My husband and I, for instance, own a house at 40th and B, and that's valued at about $185,000. We looked for a similar property when we went through looking at the Greenbelt issue, and what we found was a property that is in the northern part of the city. It is surrounded on all sides by city land, and yet it's still county land. And it is about 212 acres large. It's worth $5.4 million. And the tax burden in that case was $62 less than we paid for our $185,000 home in the year 2007. Now, something's off kilter if that's happening, and that's what I'm concerned about with the Greenbelt exemptions.
So you do feel that we do need to be adjusting our Greenbelt exemption policy?
I think we do. I think we need to be looking at them carefully, and what we're facing now, in addition to the concerns, is that we actually have a case up in front of the Supreme Court, state Supreme Court, because the county assessor was taken to task by the county commissioners, and that court case should be decided any time now. We're spending, we the taxpayers are spending at least $70,000 so far on paying for attorneys who are counsel to our county commissioners.
Mm-hmm. Okay.